So yes, hi everyone. It's the end of the week, so I guess happy Friday to us all. How are we all doing today? So since this is the first time, I will just take a little time to do like brief introduction of what this is going to be about and all the things we are going to be talking about. Um, yeah, but I think first of all, no stress. This is just colleagues, sharing ideas, bouncing about works. No, this is not some serious thing, right? It's just us, bouncing about work, learning from each other, and hopefully doing things together, right? And also, I need to put a disclaimer. I do not know jack shit, right? So I might say rubbish. Feel free to correct me, right? So um, the point here is that I look forward to a community of SREs where I can grab ideas from how you do things and apply it in my workplace. I can learn about trends. I don't know how many of us follow newsletters or subscribe to newsletters. Sometimes it's very it's tiring to follow through what's currently happening in the DevOps field, right? In the cloud field, right? It's very tiring. But I guess conversations like this, someone can easily share, oh, I learned this during that. Oh, today I saw one tool that actually solved my problem. Or also, um, we could also share our problems, right? Take for example, there are some particular things that is giving me headache in my workplace, right? And then I would like to share, oh, guys, how do you take for example, let's say I'm having problems doing like a CI/CD for mobile app deployment. I could say, oh, guys, has anybody done this before? And then someone could come and say, oh, yes, I've done this before. And then, we could we could learn from how you do that, how you do yours, and then I can pick that up and go and apply that in my own workplace as well. So I think that's sort of like what I'm looking for us to achieve with this. So hopefully we can keep the momentum and keep doing this every week. But yeah, the idea is for us to keep doing this every week. I sort of created like a guide that is going to guide us on how to go ahead with this. So let me also share my screen. So I just randomly there are some that I saw maybe while reading, and then there are some that I just accidentally stumbled upon. But the idea is, even if you also have other things that you learned this week or something that you just um, you would like to share, you can also edit that page and share with us. I've made the page public, so we should be able to um, add more information to that page, right? Favor, please, could you grant me the ability to share my screen so that as I'm talking, I can also open all of those links and then we can go ahead, right? All right, so just a quick sample. Let's just do like a quick introduction, right? So I'll do introduction about myself, and then if anybody here is also, I don't know, I'm not forcing anybody, but if you also like to like do some introduction, and also talk about what you do, the kind of your roles and responsibilities, right? Also, disclaimer: most conversations here is going to be technical, right? So in case, I mean, if you're here and you're learning, it's fine. But if there's stuff that you don't know about, or maybe you probably want to write some things down, that doesn't mean we shouldn't ask questions. But I'm just saying that so that you don't feel like these people don't have you in mind. But the idea is that this is going to be technical. So if it's also good for you, because by the time you start hearing some technical things, you can start writing them down as things that you need to look out for or things that you need to learn about, right? So pardon us if some of these conversations are like high level technical. So yeah. Can I share my screen now, Favor?
Yeah, I've granted you access.
All right. All right. So before we all get started, I'm going to do like an introduction of myself, and then hopefully we can all continue like that. So my name is Adedaya Kimpelu. I'm a site reliability engineer. Have been doing this for the longest time. I work mostly with blockchain companies. So I consult with blockchain companies, especially blockchain companies that are looking to set up their blockchain infrastructures. So I help a lot of companies set up their blockchain infrastructures, which can be very, very tedious because compared to some other, other fields, you already know what to expect. If I'm working for fintechs, I already know what to expect. But different blockchains have different way to work. So sometimes the work can be very exhausting. But I enjoy what I do. I think that's like the brief professional background of myself. I don't know. There's so much to say, but I hope that we get to like know more as we go. Would anybody also like to like introduce themselves, and we can then kick it off from there? Okay, Chineze, go ahead.
Hi, this is everyone.
Hi.
I'm Chimezie Uzomesinolo. I'm a DevOps intern with Nautilus. Still learning, still in the process of learning, like I said. I'm here to also learn a lot of things from the office hours. So my day-to-day jobs very depending on the task assigned to me, but I work with infrastructure as code, different cloud services also. Um, so that's basically it. I'm here to like learn as much as I can. The program has been interesting. Thank you. Yeah.
Awesome. Nice to meet you, Chimeze. Shalom.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shalom Micah, and I'm a DevOps engineer, junior, I'd say, and I'm actually, in my learning phase. Okay, just concluded the DevOps Accelerate program, and yeah, just like trying to get up to speed with a lot of DevOps practices and DevOps tools and working on personal projects. Okay, to put myself out there. So I'm looking forward to learning with a lot of like minds in the office hours and share ideas. Basically, I love to share ideas. I'm someone who is teamwork and flexibly communicating with people who are better than me on the same level and with me, or even less than me as well. So our community is something I believe in, and then that's what. So basically, it's that for me, and it's wonderful to be here.
Awesome. Nice to meet you, Shalom. Thank you. Does anybody else want to go? All right. Okay. Tapase, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Pardon me if I didn't. Yeah, please go ahead.
No problem at all. We tried. My name is Tipasi Theophilus, right?
Okay.
A professional learner, and my side gig is site reliability engineer with Stack Technologies. I log in every day to learn, and then at the side I do SRE, handle Kubernetes clusters, work with IECs like Terraform, a lot of AWS, a lot on cost optimization and stuff. Yeah, so that's a brief description.
All right. Thank you, Tapase. I don't know. I think I only heard Chimeze mention the company he works with. I don't know if Shalom and Theophilus did. I think it's also part of the thing, right? Where imagine you knowing someone that works with Microsoft, and probably you already have questions about how Microsoft handles some things on their end. I think one of the importance of these conversations also is to be able to ask them directly and say, "Oh, how do you guys do this?" Right? So I don't know. Pardon me, please. Do you want to tell us the company you work with before you go?
Tech Technologies.
Right.
Yeah.
Please, some of us don't know this. Please give us, and it feels like a lot of us are forming humility. I'm hearing a lot of I'm learning. Okay, you know what? Like me too, I'm learning, Shabo. And there's some people say SRE is your side gig. Please, what's your main gig? We are interested as well.
As learning, professional learner.
Okay, nice. All right. Okay, thank you, Theophilus. Someone else raised John Paul.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. It's John Paul, the name. So I actually started off my DevOps career. Maybe just started learning DevOps last year. So this year was very good for me. Like I completed like 2 DevOps scholarship, one at Dari.io and then the Udacity Nano degree. So I got my first role from Dari.io. So I currently work as a technical support engineer, the DevOps. So I'm actually here to learn and share my ideas with my fellow DevOps engineers. Currently, I'm actually trying to upskill myself on Kubernetes. So I'm trying to like prepare myself for the CK exam. So that's a brief aspect of me.
Awesome. Nice to meet you, John Paul. Someone was asking if Dari.io gives like scholarships. I think I can just reply in the chat. All right.
Yes, they do. And I think Shalom is a recipient. He's actually a scholarship student at Dari.io. So he didn't mention that.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
awesome.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Chama, and then we can get started.
Hi everyone, good evening. My name is Mboma, and I started learning DevOps like I think last year, but I haven't been consistent with it. I've been on and off, but now I'm back to learning DevOps like full time, and I'm currently working with CloudFormation, Terraform, and Azure DevOps. So here to learn. I'm happy to be here too.
All right. Thank you, Mboma. Nice to meet you. All right. So for today or for the rest of this, the plan is that we'll go through a couple of announcements. So announcement here means that okay, Chema, you're going to say something? Or is your hand still up? Okay. So yeah, so we are going to start with announcement. So announcement in the sense of the general things that happens, any groundbreaking news, doesn't have to be groundbreaking, just general information in the space that happened over the week, right? It could be anything really. So the idea is we just discuss this. So this is not limited. So the reason why I made this editable for us is in case you also come across any news or anything DevOps related, SR related, that you like to share with the rest of the team or the rest of the community. In this case, you can as well edit it and update it, right? And that's also why we have the channel. So if you are not in the Slack channel, the office hours channel, so it could be on a Monday. You can just put all of those information down ahead of when we are going to have our next office hours. And then the second thing we're going to be talking about is interesting finds. So interesting finds there could be anything. It could be tools, articles, tutorials, right? Whatever it is, right? So whatever it is that you've read over the week and you find interesting and you like to share, please, this is where we have to do it, right? And then the final part of what we'll be doing is basically Q&A. So Q&A is where we just come to ask different questions, right? So this is the part of, probably having something that you're trying to work on for the longest time is not working and you need like other professionals to like guide you through it, how to do it, or probably to help you take another look at it. What are you missing, right? So this is the place to do that. Although we would encourage more technical or issue relating questions, right? Um, I believe that a couple of questions have already been answered so many times, especially questions around, DevOps career, right? I feel like we have a lot of people have answered that so many times. But in order to make this more productive for us, let's tilt towards actual problems, actual questions about maybe tools or services or whatever that you think that can help you grow, as a person. So yes, and this session is also going to last for 1 hour. So today, I imagine that we're just going to do introduction a lot. So it's fine if we spend half of the time the introduction, but hopefully moving forward, we can keep up the pace from there and start, going deep. So yeah, all of these things I gathered here as announcement are just things I just gathered here and there. Some are from the newsletters I subscribe to. Some are just from things I just saw on Twitter, probably while I was scrolling and I read them, right? So these are just the things. So I think the first one is about GitHub Actions. How many of us uses GitHub Actions, right? I can imagine that almost everybody is tilting towards GitHub Actions, right? Okay.
Actually,
Yeah.
I actually like the Circle CI more than GitHub Action.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Yeah, okay. I would say my previous experience was maybe Jenkins. When I used Circle CI, I just loved it. So I've not really had much experience with GitHub Action, but I think for now I'll stay with Circle CI because I like everything there.
Interesting. I think for me, I haven't used Circle CI that much. Looked through the interface, but I don't think I'm versatile. But on the other hand, GitHub Action seems to be because at some point almost everybody uses GitHub as their VCS, right? So that means that it's easier for you to have all of your automation, your CI/CD tool in one place, right? I think the closest to GitHub or something that some people arguably think is better than GitHub Actions is GitLab, right? GitLab has like an entire DevOps integrated into their platform. But again, the thing about our field is that a lot of things are highly opinionated, right? Someone will tell you that GitHub Actions is the best, is mostly his opinion, right? Or someone will tell you that, I use Jenkins, and they will have like valid reasons why Jenkins is better than GitHub Actions. So I think one thing also is that we shouldn't be too strong on tools because the use of tools can be very highly opinionated. But the goal is as long as this tool helps you solve a problem, then you are great. I think I can open the chat box so I can see. Oh yeah. So yeah, I can already see. I can already see the arguments already. But yeah, but for people that use GitHub Actions, so I use GitHub Actions, so I guess this is why this is opinionated for me. I think for someone else, someone else probably find news from like GitLab, right? Yeah. So if you use GitHub Actions, so there is when you create like workflows, right? Sometimes you want to like narrate and make your workflow name dynamic, right? And I think that's one of the things that, okay, sorry, I'm opening the wrong thing. So that's one of the things that GitHub did here. They released a couple of features, right? So I'll just talk about GitHub Actions all through for now. So there is a couple of features that, solves that. So basically, if you're trying to use, and you want especially when you're trying to automate your GitHub workflow processes, and you're trying to have like linked workflows. Before, I think the way to do that is you pass like a run ID, but now they are even like trying to like make all of these things dynamic for you, and then you can easily you can dynamically get your workflow name, right? And then the other feature that GitHub releases is, and which this is really, really good because a lot of people use this GitHub. A lot of people now set up their own self-hosted runners, right? And that is because GitHub runners are very slow and it takes a long time for them to pick up, right? So because of that, people set up their own runners, right? I think, yeah, I'm part of those people because sometimes GitHub Actions runner can be very, very annoying. But now they say they have not much more larger and more high performance GitHub runners, right? So that means that especially if you work with companies that do heavy resource like high compute CIs. So when you say high compute CIs, I mean like compilations. So if you work with companies that they use like low level languages where you have to like compile your own code from source, right? Probably you guys use C, Java, or Rust, right? Any of those guys, right? And then you have to like, first of all, build and compile your binary. Sometimes the compilation time or the build time for this processes takes about 45 minutes, right? And I mean, I've seen companies where they do that and it's crazy. But so I think a couple of companies try to do a lot of things to solve that, to abstract that by either using caching, hosted runners that they've already configured to be very high-powered machines so that their build time can be faster. But I think what GitHub is doing now is what GitHub Actions is doing now is they are now creating more powerful GitHub runners, although they do not specifically say how powerful these guys are. Okay, I think they are saying that here. So they are saying that their runners can now use up to 64 cores, which is pretty heavy, right? I honestly didn't know the number of cores they used before, but yeah. And then I think I now run 500 parallel machines. I think this is mostly important because before, especially if you're on free plan, right? Before, if you're using GitHub Actions runner, you have to like queue. You literally have to queue to use your runner, right? So that means that if some of your jobs are already running, you probably wait for that job to be done. I don't know how they run that internally, but I'm guessing they use containers, right? Because sometimes you see that some of these, because I mean, it has to be containers. There is no other way they have to be doing it. So yeah. Does anybody have anything to say about this? Probably, yeah. All right. So yeah, the next thing is the Dora Report, right? I love reading this report. I haven't gotten to read this year's report. So Dora Report is like the state of DevOps, right? Globally, right? So I think I should also I'll share all of these links, probably share this in the Slack channel. So yeah, so Dora Report is like a general state of DevOps where so Dora is like a research company, but focused towards like DevOps and cloud tools basically. So what they do is they do like surveys and go to different companies, almost like what we are trying to do, what we are currently doing, but at a larger scale, where they talk to people at Google, talk to people at AWS, do like a pulse check for, the old DevOps field, right? And then, around different tenants, maybe it's like CI/CD, containerization, open source tools, observability. I think this year was more about security. Yeah, they deep dive into security. But basically what they do is that they break down a lot of these things into like very
and I can't win the argument. I win now.
okay. I guess that's not for us. So yeah, so they break this down and then but I think it's a good thing. Why I personally like this thing is it takes me out of like my what's it called, my own silo and see how DevOps is being applied on a more global scale, right? To get to see, you can see all of these things like the software delivery, like performance of, they do like an aggregate of different companies or work companies and use that to create like a general report on how DevOps have helped like the software delivery performance, right? Okay, I'm seeing a message. I would probably go back to that so that Manisi can probably drop more points on it. But yeah, so yeah, I've not really had time to read this, but yeah, I think I will read it, and I also encourage us to read it. It will really, really, really give you like a more global insight into the state of DevOps. It's almost like knowing how DevOps is currently applied in all of these companies, the general state of it, what are the new technologies. Take, for example, someone was talking about in a year or two, we are probably not going to be saying DevOps engineers anymore. Like it's probably going to be platform engineers. I don't know, I read that somewhere. And things like this, you get to know, okay, where is DevOps going? What are the new practices? What are the culture? What are the new things that we are doing, right? So yeah, if you're interested in that, I would really recommend you read that. All right. So Manisi has a couple of points. Do you want to talk about it, or you just okay in the chat?
Oh, well, I think my network is not really that strong, but yeah, like just speaking of your GitHub like dynamic workflow, GitLab has something similar, except what GitLab offers you is more powerful. So with GitLab dynamic pipelines, you can generate another pipeline from another pipeline. Let's take, for example, I think not recently, something we've done using this pipeline is when you have like a repository that has like different, like one big giant monorepo, and you want to maybe run some tests based on some conditions and generate some extra pipelines based on some things that your repository contains. You can write a Python script that basically would generate and spit out like another GitLab pipeline that your pipeline would ingest, and then that script would create downstream pipelines. So like it's kind of like a red loop, but if you play around with it, you would really, really enjoy it. I'm just posted it down there for GitLab users who are looking for something dynamic in their pipelines as well.
Interesting. What was like a practical use case for this?
I mean, the use cases they are enormous. They are almost next to like unlimited. So the one I did, that was a few months ago. That was the first time I realized that there was this pipeline. So we had this giant Terraform repository, like it was really, really massive. And it was written in TerraGrunts, like there was just the entire repository was in TerraGrunts. And if you've used TerraGrunts before, you would know that each directory contains like TerraGrunts try to separate states basically. So each directory contains different states. So if you run like TerraGrunts plan from like the root of your project, it's going to take like forever to run everything because it's going to run through all the different folders you have. So what we ended what we ended up doing was we used this GitLab dynamic pipeline to run when you like create a merge request, for example, the GitLab pipeline we created would make a diff. So you check the directories that have been modified, and out of the directories that have been modified, check if it's modified, like if it is using like any module that you want to test. So from there, we would like create a child pipeline to validate the child module in a different repository. So it's going to trigger another pipeline in a different repository to check that the module is fine. Then it's also going to like run a localized TerraGrunts plan and TerraGrunts init for that particular directory that you have modified. So doing this, like we were able to like cut down like the time of running a whole TerraGrunts plan from, let's say, 30 minutes to something like 8 minutes. And that was just one of the numerous use cases. As long as you're able to like conceive like, okay, you want your pipeline to be able to do something. What this thing does basically does is it removes, instead of you being like constrained to like the whole GitLab YAML files. You can write like your own Python script that will generate custom scripts for you that would do different things and spit out like different pipelines that you want, depending on what you want to do. So yeah, and the thing is, it goes down and down. So you can have a pipeline that will generate another pipeline that will generate another pipeline that will keep, like the whole children and ancestors. So with that, like you can basically do anything you want to do with the GitLab pipeline.
Interesting. I think the best use case, I think the best use case would be especially for dealing with child modules and child dependencies where you don't know the outcome yet, right? And probably you want to use the outcome to now determine the pipeline that should be written, right?
Exactly. So I think that's basically like one of the best use case, or one of the use cases I've seen people use it for. So say you have like different folders that you want to do different things, different child directory that you want to do different things for. So, you just write a script that will just check if this child was modified, trigger this pipeline instead. If this child was modified, do this instead. So yeah, kind of something like that.
Interesting. And from what I'm even looking at, it looks like GitLab they've had this feature for the longest time and looks more robust than what GitHub was advertising.
So yeah, as I said, I've used GitHub Actions, or more like I use GitHub Actions currently, but I came from a GitLab Actions background, so I still miss a lot of GitLab Actions features.
You miss a lot of GitLab Actions features. Okay, you are currently using GitHub Actions. Oh, okay. I guess you didn't have a choice, right?
Obviously.
All right. Thanks a lot for that. This is actually interesting. I think for me on GitHub Actions, the way I've encountered this kind of problem before, and the way I solved it was I had to write like my own GitHub Actions. Like, so there's not like a matrix, in GitHub Actions, there's this like matrix feature where you can like run parallel builds, right, for different jobs, right? So I think what I just did was I just have that script. The script you now use based on the output of that matrix, it will now run on the matrix. So I can imagine that is also going to solve my problem, but unfortunately, I didn't use GitLab. So I'll probably have to test it with GitHub Actions. But yeah, thanks a lot, Manasseh, for that. Thank you. All right, moving forward or moving on. So I think the next thing is, so I think I find this interesting because I don't know how many of us have had to like compare AWS and GCP's reliability, right? I don't know how many people have had to do that, right? Sometimes like you are not just, I can imagine that a couple of us, you will have had to work with, you get a company and they are using AWS, and you get a company and they are using GCP. I mean, you don't have any option, you have to work with what they have. But sometimes you are in the position where they ask you, now want to go cloud way, right? Which cloud should we choose? And you are saying AWS, right? And then most often than not, they are saying, why? Why choose AWS? Outside of, the whole generally available thing. Sometimes I would really love to know, okay, how does AWS machines perform compared to GCP instances, right? Or how does AWS big data solutions compare to GCPs, right? Seeing those kind of proper benchmarks done really makes me happy. So that way, when I say that I'm going for AWS, like it's not because of emotions or it's not because of preference or what I'm comfortable with, is because I've done my, someone I've done the experiment of done the benchmark for me and can tell that, this is better than this. And in this guy's case, it was trying to compare AWS GPUs and GCP's GPUs reliability and availability, right? So this guy wrote like a script to do that. So he benchmarked, he used different factors at the end of the day to benchmark AWS GPUs, especially their spot instances, to also see how quickly they spin up Spot instances, right? So he created the module for that. And I read this whole article and look at this module, and I find it really interesting because now it means that if you can do that for a whole different services that these guys provide, right? Take, for example, serverless, right? Sometimes it's really, really hard to know which one to go for. I use GCP, I use AWS, and sometimes I'm looking at GCP VMs and it's giving me a headache. When I say headache, I mean in terms of performance, right? And sometimes AWS, there are some things, especially working with like blockchain companies, right? Performance is like very key, right? And there are some GCP machine families that are absolute rubbish, right? When I say absolute rubbish, I mean like if you are serious with your workload, right, don't even bother using them. So because of that, you see some companies pay just because of that factor, staying away for like AWS, right? And these companies, when they tell you that they are using AWS, it's not because the engineers know how to use AWS only, it's because they've weighed the performance of all of their machines. They've used them, they've stretched them to their limit, and then they've seen that this guy would perform better under like high duress. So basically, if you are looking for a tool, or if you are looking for a way to run that benchmark across any of this resource, so this tool is one thing for that, right? So you can use it. You can even edit it to go to check other things, right? Maybe for you, it's not GPU you want to check. Maybe for you, it's processors, like, or maybe it's like how they can run like concurrent jobs. Maybe you want to check their concurrency, whatever it is you want to check. You can use this to like run benchmarks against all of your compute instances. So yeah, I think I found that interesting. I thought to share. Does everybody have anything around this as well? All right. The next thing here
sorry.
is
It's
yeah, go ahead, Monica.
yeah. So I just find it very interesting because I think most of the time when people are trying to make decisions around the choice of cloud platform they use, you rarely see people talking about cloud the GPU reliability. But however, like the benchmark here, I just like have a few questions. I assume if you've tested it because I have not tested it. Like, have you tried to like run the code or something?
So the guy had an article. I will try to look for it. I think it was here. I thought it was even the link there. So he had an article where he explained everything that he did. I'll look for the article and share. Right. I haven't like particularly run this and run it on my own. But what I just did was I read his article because in his article he explained and he even showed all of those things I did. So he explained every little thing, and then he now shared the repository that he pushed all of those things that he did to. Do you understand?
Oh, okay. So yeah. If you can get the link for the article, that would really be helpful.
Yeah, I'll look for it. What were you going to say about it?
Right.
You're going to ask a question about it.
Yeah. I wanted to just ask some because it's the repo wasn't really clear. So I just wanted to like understand what exactly he was trying to test. Is he trying to test how fast the Spot instances in AWS spin up against like how fast they do on GCP, or is it how the performance of the GPU instances themselves? I'm just trying to like understand what exactly, because I think in the past, I used to, once upon a time, that people used to worry about, okay, which of these platforms does this better? So I want to just understand the metrics and whatever he's done here, so I can probably see something very useful.
So if I remember very well, based on the I wish I would do for the article. I just closed it. So one of the things he checked for was the what do you call it? The code time, the time it takes for the instance to spin up, right? It checks for that, but it checks for that also across different time periods, because he mentioned that there are different peak periods for different for all of these guys. So he said that he doesn't want to be biased, right? So because of that, he didn't just run it, let's say 12 o'clock today. He ran it like across different time points. right? So that, in case they all have different peak periods. And I think the reason for the peak period is that, remember, sports instances is basically like on demand. Is once you demand for it, right? So that means that if more people are demanding for the GPU instances, right, that means that, let's say on AWS, right, that means on AWS, if you at the same time is trying to request, it might take a little longer than on GCP where nobody is requesting for, right? So I think it did across different factors like that. I think it also now did like a performance benchmark on those VMs once they are up, right? He also did like a performance benchmark. I think he had like a process that he used to run it, and he also checked like their how fast they also run and how concurrent all of these things are, right? I would really look for this thing and share also. But yeah, those are the things he kept out for. All right. Does that answer that, Martin?
Yeah, it does answer, but I think for the sport instances, I think it's worth noting that with sport instances, outcome can never actually be predicted, even across all the cloud platforms, because whether today it can be fast on AWS and tomorrow it can be slower on GCP, because basically sport instances, they are demanding at the point that you want a free VM, and part of your agreement for creating sports or ephemeral instance from GCP is the fact that you acknowledge that there has to be like a wait time for all of them, because some other people might be waiting for it at the same time. So I feel like that metric is a bit flawed, because on GCP, maybe, who knows, for a particular week stretch, all their instances in a particular region might be very, very busy, and then the next one, people using it might like, so it's kind of like that particular metric is a bit how would I put it? Not really going to be determining factor.
Yeah.
But I still want to look at this to see the article there.
Yeah, I think I get what you're saying, right? That it might not be 100% accurate, because, like, except you are doing like an index over like a year or 6 months, right? You won't like get accurate. But I mean, the point is,
Exactly.
yeah. But I get, right. So yeah. But I mean, the point is that at least for this certain particular, I mean, to be fair, the guy did not say that it is like, he already said that it's opinionated. He already put like a couple of disclaimers there. So I guess, I mean, it's just for us to know for that particular period, or for whatever it is, at least we have an idea that, okay, this is how this guy performs. But yeah. All right. Yeah, I think, the next thing I was going to go on was about Terraform. Terraform, they had a new release, version 1.3.0. Honestly, I'm still on 1.0, right? And I don't, I genuinely don't, I think I'm just too lazy. I genuinely don't have the strength to start looking at whatever it is that changed. I know that AWS added a couple of features to their modules that comes with like Terraform 1.3, but I don't know. Does anybody know like any major thing that came with? I've not read through this. Does anybody know any like major thing that came with 1.3?
Okay. I recently worked with Terraform to create a cluster using an EKS cluster for my company. So one of the things I noticed, I don't know if it is for this recent one, but you can no longer declare you have to declare like a required what do you call it? Required providers inside the Terraform what do you call it? What's the word?
I talk about your
Inside
provider,
Terraform
your
provider, yes. You have to call it inside you have to call like the required provider inside, then you still go out to call like the normal providers. Like for instance, I was working with AWS and him. So I had to call the required block inside the Terraform state, then still go back and still call like the provider, the version I want to use. So that was like one of the things I noticed, and that was yesterday. I don't know if you get.
But I'm not sure. I'm not sure I get you, but I think Manasseh is already suggesting something for you. Manasseh, you want to go? Do you probably like want to go again? Because I don't think I understand that. Is it that you are like? Is it that you have issues locking your versions, or like, yeah? Chimeze. All right. So in the meantime, maybe you can probably type it as well. Maybe, yeah. So, but in the meantime, this, I don't know about this tool, but I don't think I want to automatically update my dependencies. That seems like, it sounds like trouble.
It is. It looks like
Okay.
trouble, definitely.
Because imagine I go, but how
Because
do you control this? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, I think
I lost you there. Sorry, I'm very sorry.
Okay.
So I was saying like inside like the Terraform required version, I call like a required providers this inside of it. Then still go out to call like the provider again. Like I have to specify the required providers, then still go out to specify like the region and other things that I need of that provider. Probably I will just share like a code or something like what I worked with for you to understand. Like I have
Okay.
to specify the version for the provider. They still go outside of that Terraform block to call the provider block again. And that was one of the few.
Isn't that how Terraform works? Like, is you declaring, first of all, you specifying the version of the module you are using, and then you instantiating that provider in your Terraform file.
Initially, it wasn't like a compulsory, like it wasn't a compulsory thing for me. I could call everything inside the provider block without having to specify inside the required provider block. So that was like, I don't know if it's like a new feature or probably it's just like I've not really been using Terraform so much, but like the little practice I've done before, I didn't have to like specify the required provider. It was like a compulsory
No,
thing
I think probably you've been on like version like 0.12, like, because
yes.
I think for 0.13 and above, it has always been like that, where you always have to like, there are some, especially, so the idea also is almost to prevent drift changes, right? So you would have like, there are some required providers that you have to like declare in the in that block for the required providers. You really have to. You will declare them there, and then you also like instantiate them outside. So that depends if you want to if you want to like pass like maybe environment variables, or you want to like pass like maybe they are requesting for, they have like some required variables before you can start, maybe like Cloudflare, for example, where you need to pass like your Cloudflare API keys and all of those things. So you can now also like declare that outside. So, but yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. So yeah, moving on to Renovate. I think Theo has something to say about this. It looks interesting though, but I don't know how this is being controlled.
Yeah, I think I'll have to take a look at it as well, right? Because one thing you always want to pay attention to is your dependencies, right? Wherever it is you are making an upgrade or you are um adding new features, you want to look at the dependencies and ensure that what you are using is what you need to use. Like at where I work, we have a lot of dependencies, and it's almost often um, some work to try to find out what and what to deploy to staging and then what dependency to deploy to production. So I don't know if automating that, how it's going to,
Yeah,
and I think I really need to go through it to be sure of how that is being handled. And then I can't just pass my judgment now, but I think I need to.
yeah. I I think same for me as well, right? Because except if this does like automatic upgrade for changes that are backward compatible, right? Or non-breaking changes, or maybe like for security patches, right? Even those, right? You know, those kind of things that, because the problem with Terraform upgrade is that you are using one provider and you just upgrade by one version, just upgrade by one, and you just realize that it's breaking your entire code, right? And then, right, I mean, so yeah, I think outside of that, I mean, I think for me, the part I find it useful is for, some modules come with vulnerabilities, right? Right, security vulnerabilities where they quickly patch them. So those patches are mostly backward compatible. That means that if you upgrade, nothing is going to change in the way the modules work. So I guess those kind of changes, automating those kind of dependency changes will make sense for me, right? But of course, it's still prone to like a proper test, right? So yeah, I'll also check it out. Renovate, nice. But might I say, have you used it? What was your experience with it?
Damn.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So isn't the pull request meant to prevent creating havoc on your like the updates creating havoc? I think that's the point of the pull request. And so for those that maybe have heard me talk about DevOps, for me, I like to say it's not the tools that are our challenge, is the process that is the major challenge. So using renovate and just saying upgrade my dependencies, and that's all, just upgrade it automatically. Of course, that is recipe for disaster. But what process do you put in place? And I think that's the whole point of having the pull request and putting some CI process where every pull request gets tested, and we have to make sure everything works before we even merge in the pull request. So yeah,
Mm.
I think it's having to go through a pull request and you having to to think many steps ahead and put your process through. That should address the issue of having the upgrades break your this thing.
But in your pull request, right? I can imagine, like, I understand what you're saying, right? In your pull request, that means that you've already set up different tests, right, to make sure that this actually works, right? I mean, everything passes, right? But do you actually check for backward compatibility in your pull request? Because there are some features that they are just locking in there, and it's until you try to use it that you realize that, oh shit, this doesn't work in this recent version, right? Do you put stuff like that in pull request? But me, I didn't know we have that.
So having it go through, like having the pull request before you merge it in, whether you're going to do it manually or you're going to do it automatically, of course, as DevOps engineers are supposed to do it automatically, means that you would have really run the whole thing through. And so any what's it called? Any previous not script, what's this thing called, that you had must have run through with those new upgrades before you actually merge it into, okay, now we can use it, of course not on production environment, but now we can use this on production environments. I don't know, I don't know whether that answers what you're saying.
Yes, I get. But I mean, the point is for us to use in production now, right? So I mean, so that means we have to. But because I think for me, the reason why I've been like this is for anything that has to do with upgrading Terraform modules or more, it has to be like there is a particular, either I'm fixing a bug, right? Either I'm fixing a bug or there's a particular feature that my life depends on. But other than that, I really don't bother to upgrade like that much.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, right? And again, I'm heavy on prem, so I hardly use Terraform. Of course, although we still do have a few Terraform that works with on prem, right? Some things we're doing, some interesting things we're doing, but we also don't get the need to upgrade the Terraform modules. But the point is, right? Irrespective whether Terraform or not Terraform, if you're making an upgrade to your dependencies, then don't merge it into master or main or production branch or whatever, right? Until you've tested in a production-like environment. So this goes back to the basics of the basis of DevOps. All your environments should be similar or exactly the same, as close to the same as possible, and what's not.
Okay. I think I understand you.
If it works in staging, it will work in production. And if it works in staging and it doesn't work in production, go back and fix staging. Let staging work like production.
Yeah, I think I understand. Thank you. Thank you, Basit.
Yeah.
All right, Manase.
Yeah, sorry.
We can barely hear you.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Sorry. You can hear me now, yeah?
I think you are breaking love. It's coming like 1 second delay and then, yeah. Or is it just me? And also, I think I saw someone's hand.
It's raining heavily now.
Oh, okay.
My network is a bit low.
But we still can hear you though. So, all right. I think Tolu Lopez's hand was also up. In the meantime, where we wait for Manasseh. Tolu Lopez, you want to go? All right. Also, our time is running. So I think the last thing here is Cloudflare. I don't know. Cloudflare is almost doing like, they're almost trying to like compete with AWS and GCP and, the rest of the cloud service providers in this space. So I think, was it last week that they officially like released the R2 service, right? Basically their own storage solution, right? And it's interesting, right? I guess I imagine that in the next 3-5 years, all right, Cloud will probably be like a cloud service provider on their own. But I mean, I'm just saying. But yeah, so recently they said they've introduced this DDoS alert, and I like it because I think personally, sometimes like you don't know that you are getting DDoS until you are getting paid for like high traffic request or something, right? Like you don't actually get alerted on the like Cloudflare layer, right? Until probably it has trickled down to your services, right? I mean, maybe for me, but seeing this, it makes me know that, okay, at least before it start even affecting my application or before I start getting like shitload of requests on my hand, Cloudflare is already getting to know that and is already alerting me that, oh, dude, you are being DDoS here, right? And then you can easily start mitigating, all of these attacks before they even get to your application, right? So I find this interesting. I thought to share, but the only problem is that it works for enterprise users. So if you are not on Cloudflare Enterprise, you might not enjoy this feature. So yeah, I think you can check it out. But yeah, I mean I loved it. I tested it because I think I'm on Enterprise, so I tested it. It's awesome. So yeah, you can check that out as well. All right. Oh yes. So the article I was talking about, this is it. It's actually here. Let me share it here. This is it. I'm dropping the link on the chat. Okay, you were saying when it comes to, I saw something around what we're talking about. Oh yes, I totally agree. When it comes to DDoS, nobody. I've tried to use AWS for DDoS attack once. AWS is so stressful when it comes to fighting DDoS. You have to write your own firewall rules. Like, God, imagine you are being DDoS after you prepare your cloud DNS or whatever AWS is. AWS also has they have like their own bot fighting service, but the problem is you have to pay about $3,000 to have access to that service, right? So if you are not paying that, they won't be able to automatically fight that for you. So you have to write your own firewall rules. God, it is. I don't know what other word to use, but Cloudflare is the best, all right? So yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'll trade Cloudflare for anything. Anything DNS, I just move them to Cloudflare. AWS and GCP and the rest, let them focus on compute. Yeah. Does anybody have anything around that as well? Nobody?
I don't know if you can hear me now. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So yeah, now let's talk about the whole Cloudflare thing. So I think it's becoming like a pattern in the community to see people host their services on AWS and GCP. To just give everything DNS, everything cloud, with balance, cloud front, everything's Cloudflare. Because Cloudflare's level of DDoSing, helping with DDoS, helping with load balancing is just I think there are a lot of features that Cloudflare has when it comes to their whole DDoS and helping you mitigate them that AWS and GCP can only do. I mean,
yeah, never.
It's going to take maybe in case you're wondering, advise you switch your service and client Cloudflare. Post your VMs. You cannot drop them on AWS. Let Cloudflare do what it does.
Yeah. Although honestly it was hard hearing you, but I think I was able to pick out all you said. So, but basically, just leveraging everybody's strength and not trying to like GCP, AWS. They don't have any business doing DNS. Honestly, let them. doing or fighting bots. They don't have any business doing that. They should just leave that for people that are doing it well, right? And Cloudflare. In Nigeria, they are taking as they like. So apologies, but yeah. Because of our time, finally, I think we should quickly look at this. This is literally an interesting topic. Grafana as code. Okay, Abibasi, you're going to say something?
Yeah, before you move on, quick tip for anyone using Cloudflare. If you're using Cloudflare, and I think sometimes Cloudflare automatically enables it, sometimes you enable it yourself, where it does a quick scan of of your browser before of your customer's browser or your user's browser before directing them to the web page. It shows one ugly looking Cloudflare page where it says wait for a few seconds. You can actually replace that with something that one nice thing to have instead of showing that thing page. Just do a simple page instead of just people using Cloudflare.
Okay, I think I know what you're talking about. Is that browser integrity check that Cloudflare force users to do, right?
Exactly, yes.
So you're saying that instead of doing that,
page that Cloudflare will show the
but is it going to load something, right? Is it going to load like an interaction?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
You can have your there or something like that.
Sorry, is it me or I didn't hear some last part of what you talked about?
I think it's from his network.
Yeah,
you made the point, like that's browser integrity.
Oh, okay. So I think we couldn't hear her at some point, but yeah. Thank you, Abdulbasit. I would check it out. If you also have the link, please drop it for us as well. Or you can drop it in our office hours channel, because I would like to actually check it. I don't think I've actually tried to enable it. Also, finally, Grafana as code. This, I have actually tried. I used Grafana as code like heavily, right? I don't know how many of us use it, but I find it very, very annoying. God, do you know all these dashboard JSON, right? They're like, sometimes for some dashboard, it can be like 3,000 pages. 3,000 lines, sorry. And Grafana's code is telling me if I want to like make some changes, right, on some dashboard, for example. Although there's a way I've been able to template mine, right? I've been able to template them using like JSONet, right? So I think this guy talks about them, right? You can use JSONet to like template your data variables, right? But it is still very, very annoying because I have to scroll through like lines of JSON to make updates, right? And at some point, I'm wondering, is it not Kukuma better? I'm just using like ClickUps to do my like dashboard rather than like having to like, because it seems like a bookie work to be doing, having to like update 5,000 lines of dashboard. I don't know. Is it just me? Or has anybody like experienced this difficulty using Grafana's code?
I'm not sure if my network will allow me to talk. This is it. Like a very, very important issue. We pay this internally. Should be able to dashboards. This is not Grafana. This is data. All our data production. I'm assuming the same issue.
Manose, we can't hear you. Oh, I feel bad. We can't hear you.
All right. I think that's what we keep it there. That's what it's saying.
Yeah, too bad. Yeah. All right. I didn't get that. But we are way past time. And I think for our first office hours, this is interesting. I've learned some things, and I'm sure that everybody else has. Yes, who is that?
It's me, Idris. I just wanted to.
Hi. Yeah.
Hi. Sorry for interjecting. I just wanted to quickly bring to your, because I heard your Grafana call for help. There is actually a Terraform provider you could use to build your Grafana dashboard, because I've done it before. Like you've mentioned, building dashboards for even more than 20 people or more than 20 product or customers, it's a lot of work, because sometimes occasionally some of those things can be repetitive. So there's actually a Terraform provider you could use for it. I'm not sure if...
Is it not the same Grafana? Grafana has their own provider for Terraform, like they have their own Terraform provider. Is it that one?
Mm-hmm. They have a provider.
Yes.
That you could use.
Yes, I mean, I use that provider, but the problem is that at some point, right, you are going to make, maybe for some reason you need to update some panels, right? And you did it maybe like from the dashboard. And there's a point where you need to consolidate that change to Terraform, right? So that is your dashboard is consistent across broad, right? Especially to make sure that changes are not drifting. Yeah, I think my headache now is when I make those changes on the dashboard, I don't think that my Grafana skill is enough for me to write an entire dashboard from scratch on the code. I don't know how to do that. So what I usually do is I make the dashboard. I mean, whatever panel I want to create, I create it. And then once I'm done, I go to that place where you can edit and export as JSON. Yes. I export it as JSON, right? And then I now go to do like a git div and add the changes. Now, this is where it gets complicated. For things like data sources, things like environment variables, I use templating for them. So that means that instead of hard coding a data source, I use templating like variable data source. So the problem for me now is I now have to go back and replace all of those places that it has already turned them to an actual string to replace them with those template variables. And sometimes I just want to run mad, like God. So I think that, that's the problem I was trying to talk about.
Okay. So basically what you're saying is that, let's say, for example, you template the data source, but it doesn't pick the data source you are passing to it. So you have to go and then go to the UI to manually choose the data source that you expect it to be.
No, what I'm saying is, when you template it, right? Take for example, imagine that I have a dashboard JSON. I've already templated it. Data source is going to get it like, from my Terraform variable. It's going to get the panel, maybe like environment variables, the labels. It's going to get them as environment, variables, right? From my Terraform apply. Now, let's say from scratch, I did that. It's fine. Everything is fine, right? Because it's just getting those variables from my Terraform apply, from the variables I pass on to it, right? Now, where there is a problem is the continuous work of that, where because the problem is that when you know when you export your dashboard as JSON, it's not going to retain those template variables that you used. No, it's going to translate them back to strings. So the problem now is that you now have to go back and change those strings back to those template variables you use before you can apply your next Terraform change, or else it's going to mess with your entire templating. I mean, you can as well just be using, just empty dashboard. Yeah.
I get what you mean. But anyway, what I used to do was, because I realized the constraint that you mentioned. If you export the dashboard, even if it is the one you previously deployed with Terraform, it will still come out with some, the variable would be, the variable name would be different basically when you export it. So what I used to do is, like my last team, what I used to do then was I created a standard of the variable format, and then I made sure that I keep track of the existing variable and then the new ones that have been exported. Then I just change them. Then I replace the JSON. Then I redeploy again. So using that method, it made it easier for me to kind of make sense of what's going on. Because like you mentioned, that JSON, that their Grafana as code thing, it's a bit, I was looking at it at some point too, but then I realized that this was not going to work for me. So I just dropped it and then create a flow around the Terraform provider. And that's what, because the solution I was trying to deploy then was something that was quite complicated a bit. So using Terraform was just the best line of action for me at that point. And then I thought the Grafana like code thing was going to work eventually, but I looked at it and I was like, nah. So, but I hopefully, maybe, I don't know, maybe you can also take a look at their, provider, their code base, and see how you can contribute to it as a senior engineer.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that. I mean, they just started doing this, I think, this year. So I can imagine that it's going to get better. I mean, even since when they released it and now they've added a couple of more, they've opened a couple more resources. Even things like synthetic monitoring, you can add it to there. You can do that from Terraform now, right? So I can imagine that's like, yeah, by next year it's going to get better. But currently, more not die. So look, yeah, finally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
So
thank
my
you,
question
Josie.
Sometimes it's the company that says, "Oh, I want you to use Grafana," or as a DevOps engineer, you're saying, and like I want to use this. Like, okay, instead of Grafana, I'm using maybe my Prometheus. Or what's the what do you think of before choosing a monitoring?
I think you broke off at the end, but I'm guessing your question is, what do you look for when choosing a monitoring solution, right?
Yes.
Yeah, interesting. I think for me, I've had to use a lot of monitoring tools, but I think at some point in my life, I just stuck with the Grafana stack, right? So when I say Grafana stack, I mean like Prometheus, Loki, Prometheus for like exporting metrics and all of that, Loki for like the logging, Promptail for like the transporting of the logs and all of that. All of those things is in the Grafana stack, like Tempo for like the tracing and all of that. And the reason why I personally chose that was because I'm able to customize whatever it is I want to monitor. Like with Grafana stack, I don't have to wait for the owner of the company to release an integration to one database. Or I don't have to, take for example, like for all these other tools, Datadog and this thing, a lot of them, like they have to like release like a plugin. Some developers write the plugin, external plugins, but it is too much vendor locking, right? So I think for me, the first thing I look for is how easy it is for me to like monitor and customize or define what I want to monitor, right? Sometimes a lot of companies just assume that this is the things you want to monitor. Sometimes you are monitoring more than that. Take, for example, sometimes as DevOps engineers, your engineer or your product manager is telling you that I want to monitor how many signups I have in a day, right? Or how many, things as customizable as this are things that you can do with Grafana Stack, because at the end of the day, as long as you can export the metrics, you are fine. But sometimes I find myself seeing some companies and seeing some products, some monitoring products, and then I have this weird tool and they don't have support for it. And that's where there's a problem, right? Sometimes developer writes code and they code in Prometheus integration, like when it's not Prometheus integration, like metrics integration that basically export metrics for any solution to be able to scrape, right? And sometimes these things are in formats that, some other providers will not support, right? You have to like follow, but I feel like Grafana have like their own, it's basic standard, like you can whatever it is in this world that you're doing. The other day, it's as little as, I'm sorry, this my answer is very opinionated. Alta will also give their opinion. The other day, like take for example, where I live, you know, for people, for most of us in Nigeria, you know that you pay for electricity, right? With all these prepaid. And sometimes I want to monitor how much usage, like what my usage is like, what is consuming the most electricity in my house, right? And there was time I was playing around, right? And then, you know, you could actually do that, you know, as if you can get like a Raspberry Pi, you could actually monitor like your electricity usage in your house with Grafana, right? It's just for you to put like Prometheus on like your Raspberry Pi and, you know, whatever, like you'll be able to do that. But the problem is if you are going to do that with any other provider today, you have to knock on their door for them to allow you to do that. Or you have to maybe like use their developer API to write a plugin for that. So I think the major metrics I look for is that, like ability for me to customize and monitor whatever it is I want. And then you can now start thinking about pricing, you know, cost and all of that, right? Depending, right? A lot of companies, I don't know how much, I can't really say, I can't talk much about pricing comparatively with other tools. So I don't know, you might need to do that, your research around that. But I think that what really matters is that you have the leeway to like monitor whatever it is you want to monitor. Then you can now start looking at pricing. But at the end of the day, if you are using a tool, if it's great, but it's costing your company so much, your city will probably be on your neck that don't worry, let's find another tool, right? So yeah, that's the only thing that I know in my hand. Does anybody have any other additions to this as well?
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
I want to add that another things you could, you know, consider when you're thinking about monitoring tools to use, because Adedayo has mentioned already, Grafana is almost open source. When I say almost open source, I mean that there's a community version and then there's enterprise version. And the enterprise version is paid for, while the community version is one that you can use your arts content with some restrictions. And so going back to where I'm going, some other things you could think about are use cases, you know, and what's the goal you're trying to achieve by with the monitoring, vis-a-vis what you're trying to monitor, how soon you're trying to take this to market, what you're trying to look for, and things like that. Because sometimes, as much as you would want to, you know, go along the line of using Grafana, you might want to use some less some monitoring tools that give you less what's it called, opportunity to manage them yourself, like all the other alternatives to Grafana. Because unlike Grafana gives you a lot of opportunity for you to be really hands-on with your monitoring, you know, as hands-on as even server level hands-on. You get to install it yourself, manage the kind of how you want to manage what's it called, user management and things like that. But I don't think that is really applicable to the other ones. I've not reviewed a lot of others, but I know that for Grafana you have a lot of, like, it's like having to use AWS EC2 and then, you know, using Heroku. The access for the tool, the difference is very, very obvious. So it's the same way with this. So you have to sit down and, you know, which is where design and architecture comes in. You know, you have to think about what are you trying to achieve? What are you trying to monitor? Do you need to use, do you need to go the route of using Grafana to do this, or can you do it, a lot faster and easier with some other already built solutions? And then based on whatever it is you come up with that informs your decision, then you just go with that. But also keep in mind that when you are making these decisions, like Adedayo had mentioned, you have to keep in mind that as much as possible, you want to pay as little as possible for the most value from some of these tools. So you have to keep that in mind also. But of course, everybody's biased towards Grafana because of a lot of the things you can do with it.
Yeah.
But don't forget that there are also alternatives that you can also take advantage of. And don't never forget that these decisions to be driven by the use case that you are trying to, what you're trying to achieve, the use cases are trying to get out of the way, and then also cost. Then with that, also bounce the idea against, test the idea with someone that is a lot more experienced. They will be able to also tell you, okay, so this is what you're trying to do. Maybe you could use Grafana, or maybe you could use Gitlab, maybe you could use New Relic or whatever, or maybe cloud formation, or the cloud front, sorry, or CloudWatch, or cloud whatever.
Yeah.
So just don't keep quiet about it. Just discuss with people, find out what you can for yourself, and then make sure. And when you make the decision, don't have second thoughts. Just go with it and don't look like an unserious person in front of your CTO, engineering manager, and then you're not looking like, so this person doesn't even understand what you're talking about. Do your own findings, bounce the idea of with someone who has a lot of experience than you, and then go with what works, and be open to changes also. Don't just say, oh yeah, I'm going to no, if something new comes, be very adaptable to change, and then you'll be good to go. That's all.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Idris. I think that is very spot on. Tolope, does that answer your question?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. So, guys, we've come to the end of our first ever office hours. This is interesting. I mean, for the first episode, I think this is really interesting. I'm happy that we're able to take things technical and also learn from each other. And we'll continue this next week, same time, Friday, 5 p.m. And in case you have not registered for our conference that is coming up October 29th, please do, so we can also learn more. This time around, everybody from different companies is coming around. People are flying down already to Lagos. There are so many opportunities, learning opportunities, opportunities to network as well. So please, in case you haven't registered, we'd love to see you, especially for senior guys, right? A lot of companies are coming to poach you in case you are ready to be poached as well, or in case you just want to just network as well. So yeah, looking forward to seeing you guys next week. Cheers, everyone. But please, let's make use of our channel as well, so that this is not a close. So if tomorrow you see something interesting, you can drop it on the Slack channel, the Office Hours channel, and then we can keep talking about this, right?